Our story begins when a concert rehearsal is interrupted by a group of armed men. Matteo and his friend John are part of the tactical team sent there to rescue the musicians. Things get out of hand when the criminals start to record a message. They're asking for 300 million euros, and their video ends with a demonstration of what will happen if they don't get it. As Matteo realizes that these guys are not bluffing, he disobeys John's direct orders and goes in earlier than planned. He successfully takes down the criminals, but his impulsive actions end up costing John's life. 5 years later, Matteo is in Romania with a completely different job. Not very keen on socializing with his new coworkers, he spends most evenings with painful memories of John and the happy family that outlived him. His wife Aline probably doesn't even know how it happened. He finally decides it's time to set the record straight. He quits his job in the morning and buys a train ticket. In Amsterdam, there's a huge Interpol bust going on at the docks. Apparently, two criminal organizations are now working together, the Syndicate and the Consociation. Agent Shira knows that can't be good. The shipment looks like just a bunch of cereal boxes, but when Agent Fisher opens the first one, he finds a suspicious package inside. It seems like someone is taking the morning energy thing too seriously. One of the thugs says something to Shira in a foreign language. Judging by Agent Fisher's reaction, it mustn't have been a compliment. The man then spits on Fisher's shoe and gets dragged away for a little chat. Taking pictures of the agents from a distance is Burr, a loyal member of the Consociation. He gets a call from the big boss, Gabriel Sabin, and tells him about the lost shipment. Burr says it's really odd that the Interpol was already waiting for them. It's like they knew exactly where to look. And that's because they did. That foul-mouthed man is actually an informant named Roman, who's been feeding information to the agents. The whole thing with the shoe was a little act so they could talk. Roman says both the Syndicate and the Consociation will be on edge now, and someone is bound to make a mistake. Speaking of mistakes, look at this guy at PW Investments. He is on the phone with a potential client/victim, trying to convince people to buy crypto, but not because he believes in its potential. He's actually talking people into the same mistake he has made so he can use their money to cover his own losses. And even though he makes an effort to sound cool and collected, we can hear the notes of despair in his voice. Meanwhile, Matteo is mustering his courage at Helene's doorstep. The little girl who opens the door is John's daughter Angie, and she is quite a character. Her first question is about broccoli. She wants to know if John really liked it. Matteo tells the truth, apparently revealing her mom's deception about it. Helene is now married to a man named Paul. She's happy to see her old friend, but also resents him for such a long absence. He didn't even go to the funeral and just was not there when she needed him the most. Matteo starts to explain that and tries to tell her how John died, but she won't hear any of that. She gets mad at him coming here after she's moved on to dump all of this on her. Matteo apologizes and leaves, but Helene sees him standing right outside the house with a miserable face and feels bad. She offers him the guest room for a while, at least until he decides what to do with his life. He accepts it but says he'll only crash for tonight. Helene also shows him some of John's stuff she kept for no reason. He would love Matteo to have it all, so he can just pick what he likes. At a fancy restaurant in a different neighborhood, Gabriel Sabin is talking to Burr and Lou about their situation and the shipment bust from earlier. He says business with Mr. Ney will be suspended until they find the rat. It could be someone on Ney's side, of course, but he says it's Lou and Burr's job to find out if it's a fellow consociate. In the evening, we meet Helene's husband, Paul, and it turns out he is that crypto guy. He asks her about that giant man in the tiny chair outside. She explains the situation, and they agree to let him stay for a few days. Unsurprisingly, that chair eventually succumbs to the weight of his misery. Matteo moves to a bench and dives into a flashback. Now he's back in Afghanistan with John. They're talking about a girl named Skylar and a party where Matteo pretended to be drunk to avoid dancing with her. Matteo clarifies that he never dances at all, and John is forced to agree that might be wise, which doesn't mean he should forget about Skylar. Matteo laughs at how tactful John is trying to be. Helene had already issued an ultimatum before, which was something like, "Call her or die alone. It's your choice." John giggles at his fierce lady. That's when he breaks the news that she's pregnant with Angie. Matteo asks who's the father, which is kind of a risky joke considering the firearms they're both handling. Back to present day, Angie tells her mom she likes their new guest. He is very lonely and needs a new friend. As we can see, she is following in her mom's footsteps as a matchmaker. Paul joins Matteo for a beer, but neither of them is very chatty. And Matteo is not all that open about his adventures as a soldier. He just says he misses the Afghan sky and how peaceful it was. Not caring much for that talk, Paul goes back inside in a few minutes and tells Helene that the man is damaged. Instead of getting mad, she just laughs and asks if he's feeling intimidated. Once again, he tries to sound cool and collected and once again fools no one. Helen says he has nothing to worry about. Not her war hero husband, not the Tarzan downstairs. She wants to be with him and move on with her life. In the morning, Matteo sees Angie left him a premonitory note asking him not to leave without saying goodbye. Now he just can't upset the poor thing like that. He'll have to stay a bit more, so he gets some of John's clothes to go jogging. When he returns, Angie is leaving for school. She asks him to take care of her dog Daisy and says that they'll have another tea party tonight. So there goes another day he'll be stuck with this happy family. And just like with most happy families, this one has secrets too. Like Paul and his surprise visitor at work, Gabriel Saban. This time, there's not even the effort to sound cool and collected. Paul directly asks what is so wrong that he had to come in person. Saban is here about 15 million euros that recently vanished from his account. Frantically clicking and scrolling, Paul tries to drown him in tech jargon. Something about a glitch in the software interfering with real-time transactions. He says the money is there, but Gabriel can't see it. That's the wrong thing to say to a man like that, or anyone actually. Paul swears he'll get it fixed by tomorrow, and Gabriel says he only believes him because the alternative is too crazy. He would not be stupid enough to steal from the consociation, would he? Leaving with Burr, Saban complains about the Interpol. It's so annoying when you are trying to make a living as an honest drug lord, and those people keep getting in your way. As they get in the car, we see that Roman the informant just happens to be around, but he is just innocently looking at his phone from a weird angle. No one is saying that he is taking pictures of the gangsters or anything like that. Anyway, he's so focused on the task at hand that he doesn't see he has a tail of his own. Days go by and Matteo keeps getting tricked into staying more. Now he's building a treehouse for Angie, for example. Helen stops him to ask if he's busy because he wants to or because he's afraid to slow down. She also makes fun of his tattoos and says that he and John always went out of their way to look tough. That must be something you notice when your current husband is the exact opposite. Paul has a strange look on his face tonight. Helene says he is aloof and ignored Angie during dinner. Chalking it up to work stuff, he starts spitting these big number-related words and effectively puts her off. On the next day, a group of enthusiastic travelers have their tour ruined by Roman, who's found dangling from a lovely bridge. Gabriel calls Mr. Ney with the good news, but he's still worried. It just seems like too much of a coincidence that they had a traitor and his money is gone from PW Investments. Burr blames it on Lou that Roman didn't talk more. That's kind of hard to do with no tongue. While the agents are having a shocking surprise to recognize Roman, Paul is at the office, watching the news about the downfall of a new cryptocurrency. From Paul's one-sided conversation with the TV screen, we can confirm our suspicions about what happened here. He had picked the wrong crypto to invest in, and did so with money that belonged to the wrong client. He calls Gabriel with a pathetic story about the glitch being more complicated than expected. Gabriel doesn't even bother to yell. He just sends a few men to sort that out. Shira and Fisher are talking about the fate of their informant. Such a spectacular disposal can only be a message from Saban to them. Roman's phone starts to ring just in time to get the Face ID and unlock it, but it's too late to answer it. Shira says she'll take it to Naomi from it. At home, Helene is watching Angie play with Matteo and her husband calls. Paul says he'll be working late tonight. Then he switches phones to call Roman. He leaves a message saying he's ready to make a deal now. On the next day, Helene tells Matteo he should consider staying for longer. John would have loved to see him bond with Angie like this. So, just when things seem to be taking a turn for the better, there's a sudden and weird attack. Matteo gets jumped by 4 masked guys with bats. That's when Angie runs, but not away. She wants to protect Matteo, bless her heart. One of the goons is unmoved by the innocence of childhood and takes swift punishment for that icy heart. But in the end, this was about her all along. Attacking Matteo was just a distraction. Burr snatches the child and gets in the car while both Helene and Matteo are still on the ground. He gets up and steals a bike to go after Angie. Helene borrows someone's phone to call her husband. She tells him Angie has been taken. He immediately knows what happened and calls Gabriel, but he's not in the mood for a chat. Matteo has now ditched the bike for a more unusual ride atop one of the cars. He can see Angie is not in this one. Reaching inside, he pulls each merc out like an angry ogre playing "She Loves Me Not" with human pedals. The chase goes on until they eventually crash. Matteo wakes up at the hospital, cuffed to the bed. Helene is in the hallway yelling with a cop, and Angie is still missing. Shira and her partner show up to let the cop know they'll take it from here. Matteo tries to leave, dragging the bed with him. "Not sure you thought this through, buddy." The agents open the cuffs, but Shira has a few questions about Matteo. He doesn't have much of a file, and most of it is redacted. That's not good. And some of those guys he tossed off the car were consociation. She explains it like the NATO of crime, and this particular branch is led by Gabriel Sabin. Paul manages to keep the poker face and even asks a question or two. Shira says this is not their MO. Whenever they kidnap someone, it's usually a teen girl no one will miss. This looks personal. She says that if they know anything, this is the moment to share. Paul remains categorically silent. Shira gives Matteo her card. Fisher says that's the number to call whenever he's about to do something stupid. But he's the one dropping the ball and doesn't even know it. Lou was standing right there all the time, and Fisher double takes too late to catch him. At the same time, Angie is being comforted by a stripper named Molly. Gabriel tells her she'll be home soon and there is nothing to cry about. But what he says to Burr is actually very different. Wondering what to do with her, they actually consider selling her to an international gang. Determined to find Angie, he asks Helene for the code to open John's briefcase. Paul interferes and says these guys are too dangerous. They should leave it to Interpol. He ends up saying more than he could really know, and Matteo picks that up immediately. Helene is shocked at his suspicion, but that turns into horror when she realizes he's right. Paul confesses everything and says there is no way they can go to war with these people. Funny how he didn't think of that before taking 15 million euros from the very same people, isn't it? Matteo makes him call Sebin, saying he has the money. They set up a meeting at a construction site in Westport. Burr thinks it's a trap, and so does Gabriel, so he sends him in his place to get rid of Paul or whoever shows up. Before he leaves, Burr has the nerve to tell Angie it won't be so bad. In fact, he was an orphan himself, and as anyone can see, he turned out just fine. Molly covers Angie's ears out of mercy until he's gone. Shira calls Fisher with news from Naomi. She got into Roman's phone and sent her that message from Paul, saying that he wants to make a deal. He also asks for immunity, which can only mean he has some kind of dirt. He's probably covered in it. So Shira tells Fisher to keep an eye on that family. Sadly, she says that too late, and now it's Matteo who has an eye on him. At least Helene offers him some coffee. Fisher asks about Paul, and she says he's upstairs. It sounds like she couldn't care less if he rots in jail. At the meeting point, the Merc leader laughs at Matteo. He says there is no trade. The deal is just that they won't kill the girl. Some lucky prince from some other country will make a princess out of her. Now, we know the money is not in that bag, because, you know, there is no money. But what did they fill it with? We find out as the Mercs do when the bomb goes off. Matteo picks a survivor and drags him to a shed, where they have a pleasant conversation until Angie's whereabouts are revealed. At Helene's, Agent Fisher is starting to suspect that Paul might not be looking forward to his own arrest. That's the least of his worries now that Lou breaks in to attack him. Helene tries to help the agent, but Paul simply waits. As Fisher takes too long to leave this plane of existence, he eventually just leaves, taking a heavy bag with him. When he sees that Lou is in the back seat waiting for him too, he offers him half the cash in that bag. Lou doesn't even reply. Why take half if he can have it all? Matteo uses that card to tell Shira he's about to do something stupid. At this point, she simply asks if he wants any company. So they both show up at Sebin's nightclub and just beat everyone standing in their way to the penthouse. They find Molly sobbing, and she doesn't even blink before pointing the intruders in the right direction. Up on the roof, Lou and Bird face Shira and Matteo, while Gabriel takes Angie through the stairs all the way back to ground floor. Lo and Bird's stellar criminal careers abruptly end as their lives do. So now it's just the boss. Angie tries to run, but he fires into the air, and she gets scared. When Matteo catches up, Gabriel points out he is literally bringing a knife to a gunfight. But of course, this time the knife wins. Gabriel is the one who falls, and Matteo saves Angie. And she's not even traumatized. 6 months later, she is doing so well that even her dog has a dog. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 2023 movie Black Lotus by Capstone Film, starring Rico Verhoeven and Frank Grillo. In your opinion, which character is the most relatable? Let us know in the comments below with #CinemaRecap. Until next time.